Thank you, Brandon. And as Brandon said, I'm going to go over some of the social media tactics that we use throughout this project. And one thing I want to preface is that as we continue to do social media, we want to make sure that we posted at least one post in a variety of ways every single day so that we would have consistency in the schedule, but also so that we could be following what's going on around the NFL. So we have content for our podcast, but also content for our tweets. So a little bit of a Twitter overview of what I'll be going over. I'll be going over the 3 types of posts that we have for Beyond the Blitz, the 3 statistics that we use throughout this semester to measure our success, and also what tweets worked and what tweets didn't, and whether they have more impressions or engagements, and why that is. So the first type of post that we did was our Beyond the Blitz post, and the 2 types of posts that we had for this were guest profiles and episode posts. And for our guest profiles, we mainly did an overview of who the guest is, but in the midst of that overview, we wanted to make sure that we included some of the organizations that we were in, so we were able to @ them and also @ our guest so that they would be able to show up in other people's feeds, so that people would be able to see our posts and so we can get impressions. And we also wanted to make sure in this that we had a picture of the guest. As we see on the post we had on Joe, we wanted to make sure we added the BC football team just so that could, again, show up on people's feeds. And we also had episode posts, and we had 2 types of episode posts. One was a post that we did on Thursday that showed what we would be talking about for our episode the next day. And then on Friday, we had our post just saying, hey, our episode is out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And in that post, we wanted to make sure we added some of the organizations and the people that we had on our show and make sure we have a link to our Spotify page just so people could go to the episode we just posted about. And another type of post that we did was comments. And the reason we did comments is so that we could open up the conversation and so that we could show people who we are and what we believe as far as the NFL and what we think the NFL, so we could show our brand off to other people. And we wanted to make sure that we did this within about 20 minutes of the post, because after that then there would be hundreds of comments and people wouldn't be able to look at our comments. So we want to be one of the first comments there so that people could comment on that comment and comment on that comment, so we could get a comment thread. As we see in this post here, I was able to post a comment and people were able to react to that, but we also wanted to make sure that we comment on one of the last comments so that we could show that we're listening to the opinion of some of the people that were tweeting comments. And the last type of tweet we did was a retweet, and the reason we did retweets was to have something that people are following a lot, so that if they're following that post, then maybe they'll come to our Twitter page as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we share something within an hour, because after that there are lots of Twitter pages and Twitter accounts that are already sharing that news, so then it would really become irrelevant. So we want to make sure we did that as quick as possible. And also, as we see in the retweet here, the 2 things we want to do with every retweet was to give our thoughts on the tweet, but also keep an open discussion with others. As we see here in this tweet about the Buccaneers uniforms, we wanted to make sure that we gave our opinion on the uniforms, but also give other people time and the ability to keep up with the conversation and give their own thoughts. And now go over some of the Twitter analytics that we used to see whether our tweets were successful. One analytic we used was impressions, and according to Twitter analytics, impressions are the number of users who saw the tweet. So this isn't just them going through their feed and seeing the tweet. If it ends up on their feed, no matter what, it's going to count as an impression. And we also used engagement, which according to Twitter analytics is the total number of times a user has interacted with a tweet. So again, as you can see on the left side of the PowerPoint, all of these ways are ways that people can engage with the tweet. And usually if you click on a tweet, then you've engaged with the tweet, whether it's in a variety of different ways like retweeting or liking a tweet, or any of these ways that you see on the left. And one of the most important analytic points that we used was engagement rate, which is the number of engagements divided by the number of impressions. Usually when you have a higher engagement rate, then you know that your tweet is successful, because even though a lot of people, maybe 10,000 people looked at your tweet, But if you have 200 people engage with that, that is huge because they're engaging not only with your tweet but your brand as well, which could possibly get you more followers. So I'm going to go over some of the things that we did, some of the posts that we had, and how successful they might have been. So that post that I showed of Joe had over 6,000 impressions, and the main reason for this was, as I said earlier, with most of our guest profiling post, we were able to add a lot of people, so including our guests and the organizations that they're in, and that allows it to be on people's tweet and have impressions, but also because we were able to have the organizations that we added in the tweet to retweet, and then whoever follows them retweets that as well. That allowed us to get more engagements and have our highest engagement rate of the year, which was 11.3%, which is huge for any organization. But one thing that we learned was, in the beginning, we did not, when we had our episode tweets, at the beginning, we didn't at some of the organizations that our guests were in, so this really hurt us. So even though we had 6,000 impressions in our post about Joe, the episode that he was in, the post we made about that, only 200 impressions and 1 engagement. So that's one thing we tried to work on with one of our biggest tweets, most successful tweets of the year. And it's this one about Jim Wyatt, as Brandon said earlier, the editor and writer for the Tennessee Titans. Because he had over 80,000 followers, we were able to get over 14,000 people to see our tweet on their feed, and also over 200 impressions, which is mainly due to the influence that Jim has as a writer for the Titans. And 1.5% is not bad as an engagement rate, because most big companies that have Twitter pages, 0.05% is engagement rate they usually have. So for having over 14,000 impressions, 218 engagements is not bad at all. And one thing again that we learned was we want to make sure we added Jim in the post, and also add the Tennessee Titans, who is the organization he's a part of. And because of that, we were able to almost get 7,000 impressions. And even though engagement rate wasn't as high, this is usually what happens for most of our episode posts. And one way we can combat that is maybe just having more influencers on and just getting more followers. I think once we get more followers, they will actually want to look at our posts. So another thing we did, as Brandon said earlier, we had a website. We made it on Google Sites. So he said earlier that we had this website as a landing page for people to go to. And now I'm going to go through with you some of the ways we designed the website. So on the left is our home page, and we wanted to make sure that we express we love the NFL, we love football. So we did that through our Beyond the Blitz logo, but also the stadium scene, as you see right there. And also just we wanted to connect our logo, our brand, with what we stand for and what Beyond the Blitz is. So we have a description right next to the logo so people could connect to that. And also at the bottom, the red footer at the bottom, we wanted to make sure that people could connect with us as well. And that's why we have our Gmail account there so people can contact us, and also our Twitter account so people can possibly direct message us. We also have our Twitter and Apple Podcast accounts there at the bottom so that people would be able to go to our podcast episodes as well. But if they aren't able to go to our episodes, we have an episodes page. And the way that we worked this was I was able to upload our MP3s onto our Google Drive. And with the Google Drive, I was able to get a shareable link, put the shareable link and embed it into the website, and able to get the MP3s up with the play button, as you see there. And we also have the Spotify link as well. If people are interested, they listen to like the first 3 minutes of the podcast and they really like it, they're able to go to the Spotify link as well. And this is just a way for people to listen to it if they don't want to listen on any other platform. And we also have a guest page. Again, our guest profiles are huge on Twitter, so we wanted to make sure we have every guest on our website so that people can get to know them. But also, this is really for people who want to follow certain guests. If they know a guest that's on our show, but they don't exactly know what episode they're on, we have links to every single episode that every guest is in so that we can have a variety of mediums for people to go to and a variety of ways. We just want to make sure that we adhere to every single need that our followers may have. And we also just have an About Us page. Brandon said earlier, it's not just about Justin Rogers or just about Brandon Wells, it's about Beyond the Blitz, but we also want to just make sure that people get to know us and why we're doing this podcast. And that also goes into the birth of the Blitz, which is the history of Beyond the Blitz that Brandon went through earlier in the presentation. Connecting to our website, we also had a domain name, and we got this through a grant that we got, some funds that we got from the Wade Institute for $120, and we used 30 of those dollars to buy the domain name beyondtheblitz.com from HostGator, and we finished our website, but we were not able to get it verified by Google quite yet. We're still working through that, getting the TXT into our DMS, and Brandon and I are just learning how all of this works with domain names. It gives us great knowledge for the future, for future employment, but we're still currently working through this process, and it's just allowed us to learn great patience and how to work with others. And another thing, again, that really hurt us, but also allowed us to grow in other projects in this class to grow, was COVID-19. And one thing that we did before we were coming home, we did 3 pre-recorded episodes so we could have just some high-quality episodes and buy us some time to find somewhere to record online, and we found Zencastr, and we wanted to make sure that we are able to have updated episodes with good content, because sports shut down because of COVID-19, and the NFL free agency was the only real sports news out there, and we're an NFL podcast, so we wanted to make sure that we updated our followers a lot, and we did this through Zencastr. And a couple things that didn't work with Zencastr was that internet connectivity. If it's not good, then you won't be able to record. Also, the quality of the mics on a computer is not as good as in the studio, so that really hurt us a little bit, but it still sounds good for what we have. And also, if one person talks over another, then the audio won't be good. So it just, that even allows us to learn how to professionally talk to people and just give people space to speak. And Brandon and I just needed to have constant communication as well during COVID-19, because if we don't, then we wouldn't be on the same page, and we wouldn't be able to get our outlines together, do tweets, and get guests on our show. And also just not having more, and we were also able to have more opportunities for professional guests to come on, because they didn't have to travel all the way to Bridgewater to be on our show. That's why we could have people like Jim White, who are from Tennessee, to be on our podcast, so they would be able to just record from the comfort of their own homes. And so at the end of the day, what worked and what didn't? What worked, I mean, it really just goes into everything that Brandon said. Being able to make this into a professional podcast is huge for us. So as you see, all of these things that Brandon went over with music, logo, professional guests, having a new podcasting platform, an Apple Podcasts, and having a landing page and a Twitter account with a good, decent following. 29 followers isn't as bad, I mean, over the 3 months. And also just having consistent outlines and consistent schedule, as Brandon was talking about earlier. And also, this is just something that we're proud of, to show employers and to show our friends and family that we're not ashamed of. But however, we didn't reach all of our goals. And again, Brandon said our goal was to quadruple our listeners, streams, and followers on Spotify, and we were only able to double all of those except our followers. We only have 4 more followers. We had 7, now we have 11. We're trying to work on that. And another thing that we didn't able to do was have 50 followers. We only had 29, but again, over 3 months, that's not bad, just working from the ground up as we did as a podcast. And we weren't able to also be on a regular schedule. We were able to do that for preparing for our podcast, but as far as updating our website and getting guests on, we were kind of behind the ball on that. And even some of our tweets, we did a couple hours later than we wanted to. So that's just something that we need to work on constantly beyond that. And as I said earlier, we weren't able to publish our website, and that really hurts us because we aren't able to have that landing page that people can go to and have a lot of links just to click on us. And also just having that public presence and having events on the KCC or on the mall doesn't allow us to have the face-to-face contact we could have and even have more followers on Spotify and Twitter, so that really hurt us. So at the end of the day, there's always next time, right? And so what is some things we could possibly do if we could start this over? Well, first is just get more feedback from professionals. And that has to do with professional podcasters and seeing, well, how is our audio quality? How was our intro, our outro, or how are our different things that we did in our podcast? Getting feedback that way, but also from people who run Twitter accounts, such as Emily, who runs the Twitter account for BC Voice. I mean, getting her feedback would have been great, but we just, that was just something that we didn't even think about doing. Wish we would have done that. If we did more research on our domain names, that would have been great too, just so that we wouldn't be delayed by a month in not having a website and being able to post our website. So doing more research would have really helped us out in the long run. Also, as I said earlier, just getting things done sooner rather than later would have allowed us to be able to look to other projects that we had within this project and get more things done. And also, as I said earlier, more time to promote Beyond the Blitz on campus really would have helped us just have that face-to-face interaction with people and get more followers that way. So thank you guys for being a part of this presentation. And again, thank you for being here. And again, we learned a lot of great things for Beyond the Blitz, including networking, learning how to do a social media platform, and also even learning how to get a domain name and have a website. So thank you guys, and this has been Beyond the Blitz.